The greatest power in the universe is life, and it's in you. Every moment, every hour, every day, month, and year, you gain more experience, more ability, more power. Go be great.
You're listening to the Go Be Great podcast with Travis Wolf Sr., inspiring you to strive for greatness in everything, everywhere, every time.
Go be great!
Great day and welcome to the Go Be Great podcast. I am your host, Travis Wolf Sr., and you are great. Guys, you don't have to start great, but you do have to start in order to be great. That sounds super profound. I was sitting here, I was getting ready, I was getting my mic set up, and all of a sudden that just came to me, and I'm like, that's what the podcast is gonna be about, right? I was so happy because I was like, how am I gonna start this podcast? And this just came to me, so I'm so grateful for that. I heard that a long time ago, years ago. I don't remember who said it to me, but they said you don't have to start great, but you do have to start to be great. And you know, when I first wanted to get a podcast started, I reached out to a friend of mine who was doing some podcast, and reached out to another friend of mine who was doing some podcast, and reached out to another friend, and I was just asking a lot of questions about the podcast. And one of them said to me, Trav, just start. Just start. It might not be perfect in the beginning, but just start. And so I did. Did about 3 or 4 episodes, and they were trash, right? I didn't like any of them. I didn't like any of the podcasts. I didn't like the way it was going. I didn't like the setup or anything. And if I didn't start though, right, I never would have known that I didn't like what I was putting out, right? I didn't necessarily like the angle that we were using. I didn't like the trajectory of the way things were working at that time, right? So now we're here, and this is a little bit better of a setup. I kind of like it a little bit better. Looks a lot cooler, right? And I don't know if I'm super happy with this. This might not be the final, setup, but if I didn't start, I never would have gotten to the point where I got my first podcast out. I've got some great feedback. Thank you so much to everybody who's given me such amazing feedback on the podcast, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, text messages, phone calls. I got a phone call from my aunt, my great aunt, and my Aunt Val. She took care of me when I was a kid. I called her Mom Val because she was always a mom to me. I was given away after birth. My mom had given me away because she didn't have anywhere for us to stay. We were homeless, and she already had my sister Tiana, who was about 3 years old, almost 4, and a newborn baby, and she couldn't take care of both of us at that time with nowhere to stay and homeless. So my great aunt Val took me in, and Mom Val has always been dear to me. So she called me about the podcast, and it's just amazing, man, the reach that I'm able that I have, with this podcast. And that was the goal for me to expand my reach and reach more people and talk to more people, get in front of more people, and to share a message that was powerful and impactful. But not only that, but to train and teach individuals that regardless of your circumstances, your victimization, your environment, whatever your perceived plight is, you can overcome and you can achieve that greatness in your life as well, however you define it. So it's so amazing to be in this position right now, and I'm so grateful, but I never would have gotten here if I didn't start. To finally get that podcast up, I had Carlton uploaded on YouTube, right? And Carlton is our technical director, and he does everything technical. And when I had Carlton uploaded to YouTube, I didn't realize that it took a while for iTunes to actually approve the podcast, right, before they put it out. So it took 2 days after I uploaded to YouTube and started sharing it around. It took about 2 days before I was able to finally get the podcast up on iTunes. So it wasn't perfect, but in fact, it was perfect. It wasn't perfect by the standard that I had set, right, that I kind of put myself under. I had some really high expectations for myself with this podcast, right? And I set the bar so high, it might have been a little bit unrealistic. I kind of pushed things through and rushed it a little bit faster than I kind of wanted to. But all in all, it's perfect. Everything worked out perfectly exactly the way it was supposed to. And the podcast is out. I have a podcast, and it kind of started hitting me today when I was like, man, how many people want to do a podcast? I remember 2 years ago, I said I wanted to do a podcast, and I tried it, and I didn't do good at it. I didn't like the work I'd had to put in, and effort. I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't do the research first, and I just quit. I'm like, I'm not doing this. This crap is hard. Forget it. I don't want to do a podcast anymore, right? I leave that to the guys who like it. I don't like it, right? And then for a long time, I didn't do it. But the truth is, I always wanted to do one ever since I started in this medium, right? In this personal development and growth space. But I didn't know how. Right? And I was fearful of not knowing how. And I was fearful of it failing. I was fearful of it not doing well and what that would look like. And it's very interesting because at that time in my life, I didn't really have any fears, but because it was new and I was ignorant, it made me fearful. Right? And I think that's why a lot of us don't get started. Am I right? Like a lot of us don't get started because we're fearful and we don't know what we don't know. And we don't want to learn what we don't know, especially when we're already waist deep and then we realize we don't know how to swim. It might be too late, right? So we don't want to feel that fear, that fear of ignorance and fear of the unknown and the fear of failure. So I think that what helps is just doing it anyway, right? Just doing it anyway. If I hadn't done it anyway, I wouldn't be standing in front of this camera recording this second podcast. Or if you're listening or watching right now, it's already been done, it's been produced, and I wouldn't have gotten past that one. I'm actually already on like 6 or 8, actually. I'm on 8 podcasts already. I'm about to do another one tonight because I'm feeling so good about it. I might even do another 2 or 3 of them, but I never would have gotten there had I not gotten started. And that's just the message, like just start. I was at an event recently and a young lady was in the audience, and an older lady actually, but she said to us, I was on a panel and I was one of the panelists, and the young lady said, how do I start? How do I get started? And I couldn't wait to grab the mic. I just grabbed it before she even finished her full question, and I couldn't wait to jump in. And I asked the audience, and the panel rather, do they mind if I answer first? And I was so happy that, of course, they're not going to say no, but I was so happy I got to answer first because I don't know what everybody else was going to say, but I do know that the way to get started is simply to start. Just start. And I told her that, your question is, how do you guys just start? Start. I don't know what step you have to take. I don't know what the first step is to doing a podcast. I don't know. There might be a list out there. I don't know. There might be, certain steps that I don't know what they are. I do know that if you don't get started, you'll never get there, right? So I wanted to do a podcast. I got started. I started researching how to make a podcast, how to create a podcast, how to upload a podcast. I ended up having to pay a bunch of money to SoundCloud to get a pro membership. No big deal, right? I think it was like $100 and something a year or something light, right? So it's a nice investment towards your dreams, right? It's a great investment towards your dreams, whatever it is. Whatever the amount is. So I paid that amount. I got the podcast, I got the whatever SoundCloud gives you the ability to upload it there. Got the RSS feed. And then I knew I had to do something with iTunes because I remember when I first started a podcast 2 years ago, I saw that I had to go to iTunes in order to get it on iTunes and get it validated. So I went through that process really quick. And I'm here. So all I want to say, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. Just get started. You're listening to me right now. You're actually wasting time getting started, right? So go get started. Go get started. Go get some and go be great. God bless you guys. I love you and I appreciate you. Have an extraordinary evening. Peace.